Hello and welcome to Real Economy. In this episode, we'll look into the biggest overhaul of policy since the foundation of the European Union, the European Green Deal. Nearly every major aspect of European economy is set to be reassessed in light of the climate and ecological emergency. For example, from 2021, at least 40% of the budget for common agricultural policy is going to be devoted to tackling climate change. Coming up, we head to Portugal to see how the winds of change are already altering its energy sector, and then we meet the Vice President of the European Commission, Valdis Dombrovskis, to ask who is going to pay the bill. But first, let's see where we want to go and how.
The Green New Deal lays out a grand European plan for tackling climate change. The targets to be reached by 2030 are a minimum 40% cut in greenhouse gas emissions compared to 1990 levels, a share of at least 32% renewables in final energy consumption, and at least 32.5% in energy savings. Europe will have to direct 1 to 2% of its annual GDP towards the green economy, including new infrastructure, public procurement, research and development, and industrial retooling. The EU Commission estimates that additional investments are needed to achieve the EU's 2030 climate target total of €260 billion per year. However, it's proposing to dedicate €45 billion a year from 2021 to 2027. So that's not enough to reach the target. The €215 billion per year shortfall will have to be made up by contributions from households, corporations, and above all, national governments.
Some EU member states are performing quite well, especially when it comes to renewables, such as Portugal. Last year, from January to November 2019, 53% of Portugal's energy came from renewable sources. Guillaume Desjardins visited a wind farm there to find out how they reached this point and what is coming next.
Well, it may not be obvious today, but Portugal has more than 300 days of sun every year. That and the strong winds from the Atlantic give the country a major advantage when it comes to renewable energy. Completed last summer thanks to a European Investment Bank loan, this wind farm is one of Portugal's newest clean energy projects.
We have here 13 turbines, 3.6 megawatts each turbine, with a total installed capacity of 46.8 megawatts. We had to use local manufacturer. Part of those components were produced in Aveiro, and therefore this very interesting outcome in terms of production directly from Portugal.
With an average of 53.3% of its 2019 electricity production coming from renewables, Portugal is confident it can meet the 2050 carbon neutral challenge and inspire future European Green Deal initiatives. In March 2018, Portugal's renewable energy production actually outpaced, for a moment, the whole country's consumption, covering more than 103% of domestic needs. This could mean high electricity export revenues for the country, if it weren't for a bottleneck in the European electricity grid in the Pyrenees.
It really depends on how the grid is managed. We are already interconnected with Spain, and there's a couple of interconnections being worked on. But that's not all there is. There's this whole other side of the market, which is demand, which you can use. It's what we call demand response strategies, where you pay companies that shut down their equipment when there's a need for a peak load in consumption.
Beyond making environmental and public health sense, this policy could also make economic, financial and social sense.
I think Iberia, together with Portugal included, can be the next Qatar for renewable energy. When you look at wind and hydro and sun, we were able, with the proper interconnections between Iberia and France, to be able to supply tons of electricity from renewable sources from both sun and wind.
On the other hand, everybody is asking who is going to pay the bill. The new EU Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, promised €100 billion to help finance the transition to a low-carbon economy. But a lot more has to be done. That's why we came here to Berlin to meet the Vice President of the EU Commission, Mr. Valdis Dombrovskis, to ask what this enormous transition means for the citizens and for the companies. So we've seen that Portugal, for example, has done a lot for the transition to a greener economy, especially when it comes to renewables. So if member states can do so much by themselves, what this Green New Deal from the EU Commission has to give more?
Indeed, this will be not, just meeting some emission targets. It will require quite substantial transformation of the economy. So that's what the European Green Deal is about, how we ensure this transformation economy, how we move to the carbon neutral economy in a way that is socially acceptable, in the way that preserves our social market economy model. The Just Transition Mechanism will be part of the picture. It's going to be part of the Sustainable Europe Investment Plan, which aims to mobilize, in general, investment for this green transition, basically aiming to unlock at least 1 trillion euros of investment over the next decade. And as part of this, there's going to be Just Transition Mechanism, which is more targeted support to the regions and sectors which are most affected by this transition, for example, like coal regions.
What is a green investment? What is green for the EU Commission for you?
The EU has reached an agreement on the classification system or green list of green and sustainable economic activities. It basically goes in 6 environmental categories, starting with climate mitigation, climate adaptation, biodiversity, circular economy, waste management, marine ecosystems, and so on and so forth. And it basically entails what can be said which are green economic activities and which are transition activities which will help us to transition from current stage to the carbon neutral economy.
Is it going to be much more expensive for the ordinary citizens if all these investments and goals have to be achieved?
On one hand, one can say yes. Certain jobs will disappear, certain fossil fuels will get more expensive, but at the same time there will be many new jobs created in green economy, and there will be many new economies which will make green energy and this green transition affordable.
So what is important is to attract huge public and private investment over the coming years so that this European Green Deal works for the prosperity of the people. It is quite a challenge. Vice President, many thanks for being with us and for your time, and see you soon on Euronews.